Okay, so today we're going to do slope part 2. So last week we did slope part 1. Today we're going to talk about something different in slope. For example, the different types of slope, the equations for different types of slope, and also some example problems like usual. So let's do it. So, some of you maybe have seen this exact slope many times. This is positive slope. A way to remember is that it goes to the top right, goes to the right side direction. So let's just write positive slope. Now, some of you may have already seen this one too. This is negative slope. It is opposite of positive slope. It goes to the top left. So negative slope. Okay, now, on the bottom, we're going to write two different types of slope. You may have seen this, you may have not. This may be new to you, maybe not. So, when you see a slope like this, you can say, hey, that has no slope. It just goes to the y-axis. Well, you're right. It's called a zero slope. And for some reason, for the second letter in slope, I always want to put it as a capital today. And now, this one. You might think, hey, that's also a zero slope. You are actually wrong. A zero slope is like this when you try to find out the slope, right? It's 0 over a number. But undefined slope, when you try to find out the slope, is a number over 0. So, there is no zero slope, basically, for when it's like this. Zero slope is only for this when it's horizontal, not vertical. This is called an undefined slope. Now, let's talk about the formulas for each of these. Both of these are like interchangeable. You know, y equals mx plus b. As long as you add something to make sure one is positive and one is negative. So, for positive slope, it's of course y equals mx plus b. The m is positive. But for negative slope, here's the catch. It's y equals negative mx plus b. The slope is of course negative. For zero slope, you might think y equals 0 mx plus b. That is actually not correct. The way you write for a zero slope, since it goes through the y-axis, we know that's a y-intercept, right? So we kind of write it in that form. Except no slope, no x, just the b, which is the y-intercept. So the way we write it is y equals a number 7. So if it was crossing through the point 0, 7 only, and like it's just always like cutting through the y is always 7, then it's a zero slope. And really, that's just how you write it, y equals 7. Now, for undefined slope, since it's vertical, it cuts through the x-axis, which is an x-intercept. So it's basically the same thing as zero slope, except instead you're writing x, and it looks different. So we would write x equals a number, for example, 5. So, an important thing to remember, since zero slope goes to the y-axis, it's y. Always y equals a number. And since undefined slope goes to the x-axis, it's always x equals a number. That's all. Okay? Now, let's move on to some example problems. Okay, so right now we have some example problems. 2 of them have the equation. Okay? 2 and 3 only show the equation, and we have to draw the graph and say what type of slope it is. 1 and 4 only show the graph, and we have to write the equation and also say what slope it is. So, the way we're gonna do this, the steps we're going to do this for like number 1, number 2, number 3, and 4. First, we're going to write what slope it is. Second, we're going to either draw the graph or write the equation. And third of all, we are just going to repeat until we finish, right? So, for number 1, what I can see here is is horizontal. It only goes through the y-axis. And it's not like, it doesn't have a slope basically. It's only straight. So, I can see that this is zero slope. It's horizontal. It doesn't really have like a diagonal slope. And really, it only goes to the y-axis. That's the main important thing here. And it's horizontal. So the equation, since it's only going through the y-axis, is going to be y equals the y-intercept. Because the slope is 0, so we don't even have to write 0x. So y equals, let's say, -5. And the reason why I write -5 is because it's on the bottom 2 quadrants, it's not on the top 2, okay? These top 2, this is positive, the x and y. This is for the second quadrant is negative for x and positive for y. The third quadrant is both of them are negative, the x and y. And the fourth quadrant is only the x positive and the y negative. And the zero slope only goes like between the bottom 2. So it's of course negative. For number 2, it says x equals -17. So there's of course an x-intercept, because there's only x equals something. It doesn't show a slope or something like that. It's basically like zero slope except it's x. And so the only one that I can remember when we discussed equations before that only had x equals a number was undefined slope. So let's draw that. And because it's x equals -17, we know that the x will be negative, so it will be on the left side, not on the right. So we're gonna draw it on this side because it's negative. Vertically. That. Okay? And I'm sorry, but I forgot to write undefined slope. That's what this slope is. Because it's only x equals -17. For number 3, it says y equals -10x plus 2. The plus 2 doesn't really matter to us. It doesn't tell us what the slope is. But the -10x, that's pretty important. Because it's -10, not +10. And the -10 is the m and the mx. So it's the slope, which identifies that is the negative slope. So let's put that. So let's estimate where 2 would be. And we draw from the top, like it's going to the top left or the bottom right because it's negative. Now for the number 4, it goes to the top right or bottom right, right? As you can see. And of course, it basically doesn't have a y-intercept. It's pretty much in the origin. So there is no y-intercept, so the b is already out. And we know it's positive slope. And this was a negative slope. Okay, and let's just make a slope for this. So y equals 3x. Okay, so that's how you do slope in a different way, the different types of slope and the equations for each of them. I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep on practicing math every single day, possibly at least once a week, and practice this because it can possibly help you for your next test. So please make sure you leave a like and click that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload. Bye!